Welcome to Enlivening Musings. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Katie.
And today we have a super special guest. Her name is Chamonix, and she is a professional astrologer and an ordained minister. She has been practicing astrology for over a decade, studying both Western and Vedic astrology and utilizing the whole sign house system. Chamonix is a single mother of 2 fantastic children, as well as a part-time childcare provider. Chamonix is also an avid reader, writer, runner, and loves to cook. Chamonix is passionate about promoting an ethical practice and observes humanistic astrology, an approach that simultaneously recognizes destiny but honors the practice of free will and the transforming of conflict into harmony. She aims to practice astrology in a way that easily relates to everyday life and to teach others how to better guide themselves through this lifetime. And she is by far one of my favorite people to resource as an astrologer ever. So I'm so happy you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yay. Oops, I'm dropping things over here. Sorry, folks. So let's go ahead and get started. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am like really looking forward to this interview because who doesn't like talking about astrology and learning more about themselves, right? That's gives you such freedom.
Yeah.
Really,
and it's what
it
we're all about, you know? We
Yes.
mention it in some of our stuff anyway, because it's like, oh yeah, this is what's happening, which is kind of funny because sometimes things are happening when we record before they get out to the listeners, as well as people listen in, you know, way later.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me curious though, is there anything super crazy that's happening right now that people should know about? I'm gonna get this one up right away.
There is one thing out going on today. So Mercury, the planet of communication, is currently retrograde and in Libra. And today it sits at an opposition with Mars. And Mars represents our aggression and our energy. And opposition is not too terrible of a conflict, but they're just rubbing up against each other a little bit, you know, too uncomfortably. So we have to kind of like watch it for like testy comments today, or, you know, maybe diving into arguments that we could just kind of curt around if we would slow down a little bit. So it's not anything crazy, but it's just kind of let's watch for being snarky.
And
today.
Is that just for today?
That's just today.
Okay.
That's just today. Yeah, actually, no, everything today looks pretty good. We're in the thick of some stuff right now, but today looks good in the thick of it. So
awesome.
That's funny. I should have known that before I got here today because I already experienced that. So that's pretty accurate.
I love it.
And we should say the day we're recording, it's October 9th of 2021.
Yep.
So.
I'll get home and get to work, everybody.
Yes.
Get this up there. So, I mean, let's start with the basics. What got you into astrology?
You know, I get that a lot. People always are like, how did you get started in this? And I don't really have the best answer yet because it has just always been around. I grew up with very unique parents, split home, blended family, multiple revisions to the blended family, a lot of cultures going in and out. We just traveled all over the U.S. I was born in Kaiserslautern, Germany, so it came to the U.S. when I was little. And it's just always been present. It's always been talked about. My dad, my biological dad, is an astronomer, an astrologer in his own way. He's triple Taurus, doesn't really mind the details too well, but he's got an opinion on what he thinks it is, and he's going to tell you. So the kind of bullheaded astrology, I guess. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. But he keeps up great, so that's nice now that I've progressed. But it's just always been around. I've got an older sister who is really into it. My mom has always encouraged it. My dad and my grandma have always talked about it. So it's just always been present. So I don't have some great story except for it's just always been in my sphere.
It's been a part of your life.
I
And
think that's cool. I
don't
think that
know.
is a great story.
Yeah. I don't know how much I even knew that actually about you. Like I knew.
Yeah, actually,
you know.
my very first like astrology books and astronomy books, my dad gave them to me, and he mailed me this like huge crazy box. I grew up flying back and forth like across the U.S. To my mom and dad since I was like 4 or 5 probably. But my dad mailed me this huge box of books one time, and it was just like Native American science, Native American approach to astronomy and astrology, a lot of like the Earth's natural cycles, and looking at it in a grand view, and so that was so special. So I've got kind of this really unique collection of books that have got like all my dad's notes and stuff like that in it too. So it's been, yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite things about you is how much you blend stuff and have such a like whole view like lens that you're looking through. And I don't know. I mean, so like some of that's in your heritage too,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yep.
I mean,
my dad made sure that when he was providing me any type of astrological or astronomical education, he always made sure it was rooted back to like any of our Native American ancestry, specifically like the Navajos and the Illilouette tribes, a lot there. I also grew up with my mom married into a very devout Catholic family. And so from there, my dad took it a step forward and started showing me books like how the book God is Red can deeply correlate to like Native American astronomy, and kind of how some of the earth that those 2 books and passages are written around focus around like the same longitude and latitude. So like just the implications of like the land, and being able to understand context of information in history, not so much just from a textbook's point of view, but really being able to feel it and understanding that the earth and the universe and the cosmos and all of these cycles are one thing. So I was very, very blessed to be able to have a mentor who kind of kept up with all of the things I was being exposed to as a child, and showed me how you can continue on with all of these beliefs and all of these experiences and all of these new people, and all of it can root back to this and can stay connected to this. So
that's so cool. I had goosebumps all over my body while you were talking about that.
That's
Thank
really
you.
sweet. So your biological dad watched you navigate through life and then just kind of supported that journey.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
He's very
Wow.
cool.
I like
He's
that.
very cool. He's kind of continuously done that. We've always lived on opposite sides of the country, but he has always been great about really supporting me where I'm at with whatever he could. So education in unique areas has been kind of his forte.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like that leads into just how much it's affected your own life and your own personal growth. So I think a great question from there is, how can astrology be used for somebody to really understand themselves or help with their own development, their own growth?
Sure. Someone asked me one time, like, what do you do with a reading after you get it? Like, do you just stick it in a drawer? Do you just like save it in your email kind of thing? And I've always kind of thought about that. And I think my answer now is, well, you embody it. Like that is what you do with your reading. So, you reach out to your astrologer, you look online or however you choose to get your information. And then when you start to resonate with it or start to recognize the parts that feel true to you, you can just step into those more and or step away from them more, because, there's a shadow side and a light side to all of it. And you just really start to live it. And then I think the more into your chart and the more awareness you have from that initial reading or that first experience with it, maybe you start to keep up with my ruling planet is Mars, and I'm kind of feeling aggressive today. I wonder what Mars is doing. And then you could look at your transits. So then from your natal chart, you can look at what the sky is doing today, reflecting, in your chart. And you can say, oh, wow, Mars is doing all these really testy things. That's exactly how I'm feeling. what would be a way to scale back from this?
So when you said Mars is my ruling planet, how does somebody figure that out?
Okay.
Like what?
Right. Okay, so we'll rewind. So you'd get your natal chart reading. And or maybe you just figure out what your sun sign is, right? So let's say, since I said Mars, let's say someone said, "Oh, you're an Aries." Okay, so you'd say, "I'm an Aries," and you go to Google and like Aries astrology, ruled by Mars. So that means that Aries, are you an Aries?
I'm an Aries.
Oh, wonderful. Let me tell you. So you would look and see that. All of the information about Aries and the correlation in the mythology that relates it back to Mars, and you could essentially plan your life kind of around what a few planets are doing. Once you understand every zodiac, so each 12, all the zodiacs have a planet that it's tied with. They're kind of mascots for each other, their team. But they'll say ruling just because that is the planet that rules it. That's the planet it's linked with.
So this current Mars stuff you talked about in the beginning, Katie.
Yeah, you're
really
feeling it.
it.
You really are feeling it. Yeah, definitely today.
Yeah. So this was a question I had too. So I've had like the natal chart.
Your natal chart, birth chart.
Yeah, and
yep.
it to me that was really, really cool. To know like this is how people maybe perceive you,
Right.
and then this is your default is kind of how the person I work
Right.
with.
Yep. Your sun, moon, and rising.
So I was curious to you, like, what do you think is the most important of those three for people to learn about?
Your sun, moon, and rising. So I'm going to give you two answers, right? Because I have to. So your moon, I always think it's the moon. The moon is what I want to know, So a lot of the time someone is talking to me and I'll be able to say, when is your birthday? Oh, I think that you are a Gemini. You are a Gemini. And then I'll notice some type of mannerism and I'll say, that wasn't very Gemini. And it's kind of those quick little behind the scene movements that you catch every now and then. That's someone's moon. And that's always what I want to know. Because your moon is like that emotional driving force that is what pushes you to exhibit all of these other characteristics out, your rising and your sun. But the moon is like that internal hidden emotional factor that pushes it all out there. So I always want to know, like, what is your moon? What is pushing you to really display your sun and your rising like this? So the moon is always my go-to. But then beyond that, I always love knowing someone's moon and their Mars, because I want to know when you feel those feelings, what is the action that you take. And that's something that I think really tells you a lot about someone. So,
Ooh, that's fun. Mine are the same.
So
ooh, that is fun.
I mean, I could look up my Mars because I have like all these astrology apps, which was another question I had for you. But so how do you figure out what your Mars is? You just have to like.
Yeah, you would look in your chart. So when you get your reading done, well, lots of people do them lots of ways. There's so many astrologers out there.
Okay.
So in a reading from me,
I think that's really important, and you're probably going to go into that, but it was in your bio too, how, as I introduced you, you're talking about whole sign. And that was something that shifted for me in my own thing, is like how I drew my own charts.
Right.
Is like this different sign system.
Yeah,
so,
we looked at yours in a few different housing systems
and
too.
then that also, which I kind of was saying earlier too, how whole and complete you are with like the Vedic astrology. Now everything's going to be totally different looking, and it's a totally different system. So I know you have so much to say, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Like, why? I wanted, as you answer that, about that, why do you use whole sign, or why,
Okay, definitely. So when you locating your Mars, when you get a reading, somewhere in your reading, it should say, or it might say, Mars in Leo in the 8th house, and it will talk about those kinds of qualities. So it should really kind of lay out what your Mars, where your Mars is at, the zodiac it's in, and then typically you'll be able to have an understanding from there. If you go onto the internet, it will give you a graph or whatnot, and it will tell you kind of somewhere on there. But so it should, in a reading, if some people actually do a lot of like video like recordings and stuff like that. My art medium is writing. I write everything. So I give you not only like an image of your chart so you can see it for yourself and it's all color coded, kind of thing. And then also I have a specific order that I work in, so I interpret kind of top to bottom of the chart. So it's almost like a list. So if you were to have a reading from me or someone who maybe practices similar to I do, you would be able to just kind of scroll essentially and be able to find it. So it shouldn't be too tricky to locate it. And if it is, send an email and say, hey, I'm looking for this.
Well, speaking of that, this was another question I had. What is your favorite app for astrology? Because I have some that I really like.
Okay, so I can answer both of these questions, right? So I can answer about the housing system and apps in this one, because the apps, that's such a tricky one for me too, because I do this so professionally now. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the apps just don't cut it for me anymore. But so I work in whole sign. Whole sign recognizes, I should rewind. I have a biology major with a math minor. So all of that makes a lot of sense to me, and like visually makes a lot of sense to me. Numbers kind of make a lot of sense to me. So when I was learning more about astrology and kind of getting into, finding what made the most sense for me as I interpreted charts, I had to look through the different charting systems. So the charting system is basically just the mathematical, the degree measurement system that people use when they are creating the actual graph of your natal chart. So not like, it has nothing to do with the context, the reading wise. It's like what that actual kind of overlay of chart, longitude and latitude.
The circle,
right?
that you're going to see with all the triangles
Yep.
in it, the pie.
So however that is sorted.
How
that is sorted. The way that we sort that out, the way that we divide that and break that all down. I use whole sign because it recognizes whole numbers. And to me, I interpret that as recognizing whole units of energy. And I don't believe in like wishy-washy or weak energy unless the math says this is wishy-washy or weak energy. So, that's a very like blunt way of me kind of putting that. So I use whole sign because it uses a whole well-rounded number. Imagine a ball kind of thing. And you're saying like, oh, you've got, Taurus here at this degree, and it's a whole solid number. And it's such a whole solid number, and I'm going to honor this placement, so true to what it is that I'm not even going to look at, that other ball that's Aries energy right next to it. I'm not even going to say that they touch. I'm not going to say they intermingle. I'm going to recognize them individually as they are, and that's how we're going to approach it. Because a lot of the other charting systems will break them down into smaller. So they'll say, oh, this is this ball, but this ball is comprised of 27 puzzle pieces, and I can take one out and I can put it over here. And so it's kind of Taurus energy, but it's a little bit Aries energy. And I just don't work like that. I like it clear, crisp.
Yeah.
Broken down very evenly so that everything gets recognized as it is.
I feel like it's so clean.
It is.
Like,
yes.
That's something that I noticed switching, and even looking at my own chart. Mm-hmm. It was just like, it was like a sigh for me. I was like, this
big time. When
this makes sense. This is clean.
Whole sign is like, it's not the oldest, but it is the oldest, like traditionally used measurement system. The most commonly used system now, like in kind of like pop astrology, is Placidius. And Placidius was only, really founded, kind of put into existence in the 70s. And so it was trendy, and it was a really trendy way of looking at astrology all over again when it, became big again. And, the trendiness has just never died. And some people really like that. I don't.
Yeah.
But there are maybe 3 or 4 other charting systems that I love to look at, or just different interpretations as well. Working in Vedic astrology, that's a whole other world, and I think that makes a lot of sense once you've reached a certain maybe like awareness or maturity in life. Not everybody's ready for that chart quite yet.
That was my own personal journey with it too. I got a book when I was 21. That was a Vedic astrology book. And I was like, this makes me a Taurus. This is not real. Mm-hmm. And I went to the bookstore and returned it.
Right.
I was mad.
Yep.
Now I'm all like, yes, I can embrace all of the earthiness about
I'm
me.
Steadfast and I'm solid and so that is why I use whole sign. And that's just something I've came to. I don't even think I formally made the switch until, actually, kind of a fun story. I did not formally make the switch until about 4 years ago. And at that point, I was so compelled. I should say I am a Pisces, and I'm a Pisces in my 7th house of relationships. So the way that I present myself to you and the way that we connect like really means so much to me. So if I misrepresent myself to you, or if I have to go back and like say, oh no, I meant it like this, that I'm like, please be soft. Let's please be soft with each other. So after I had been doing all this studying and going between looking at my own chart in a million different ways, I came to the conclusion that I can only work really in whole sign now. Like, I've got to honor this. And it was this kind of guilty wave because I had just started really making money in astrology. And I reached out to all of these clients, like maybe something like 200 of them. And we're like, I switched my system, and if you guys want me to go back and redo your chart, I'll redo the whole thing, because I don't mean what I said now, and I need you to know that if we were talking about this today, these aren't the words I want, associated. This isn't what I feel comfortable with you reading anymore. I feel like, so
you need an update, just like a phone.
Yep, I needed an update. But so then that brings me to apps. Because I do because I've been on this emotional journey with housing systems, I do like to switch between, and I do like to be able to see if I'm using an app, like if someone tells me, oh, I'm a Scorpio moon, and I get the hint that maybe they're not a Scorpio moon, I'll say, okay, is that a Placidius? I don't know what Placidius is. All right, do you mind if I put it in my app really quick? And I see, and I'm going to pull it up in Placidius quick and say, oh, you are a Scorpio moon. And I'm going to say, oh, but watch this. And I'm going to shift everything over by about 5 degrees. And, oh, no, you're an Aries moon now. That makes a lot more sense. So I like having a couple different apps. Let's see. I hear about the pattern a lot, and I hear about CoStar a lot. I don't love CoStar. I have to say it wasn't very ethically produced, and a lot of the psychological breakdowns that they put down of things are a little bit, not written as welcoming as they should be. So I know a lot of people love CoStar. I don't really feel like it's an ethical app. I don't really feel like I feel like it's going to give you mixed messages. I've heard about the pattern. I had the pattern for a while. The pattern felt like a really social thing. I keep up with things with my friends. I like the pattern if you're, kind of in that novice, like, what is astrology? I'm going to put my birth chart in something and it's going to tell me, or my birth time, I'm going to put all my birth information, and then this app is going to give me feedback on my day every day. So that is kind of a good one if you just want to start maybe getting comfortable with like recognizing things in your life, like having that awareness, because astrology really is about like awareness. So I like that for kind of getting into it. I've got a couple apps on my phone that I just like to check in with. So there's an app called Daily Horoscope, and it is just good for the basics. It's going to give you, oh, am I a Gemini? I'm going to go into this and I'm going to pull it up. Here, it's got the dates, it's got the colors, it's got the details, it's got the constellation, it's got, all of those things. It's good for just the day-to-day, quick, easy, if you were to do kind of surface level sun sign astrology. I like this. So that one. The next one I like a lot is just called Full Moon, And
I love that app.
yes, yep. So I just really like the full moon. It's got fun transitional noises when different transits hit. So if you have your sound on during the day, you'll hear like
That's
twinkle,
what that
twinkle,
one is.
twinkle.
That's from full moon.
Yes, it's the full moon app, and I'm always just like, oh, what just shifted, so then I have to go over and look and see. So I like that one a lot. And I had the membership. Crystal, do you have the membership still?
I do, yeah.
Yes, yep. Crystal convinced me to get the membership one time when she was telling me the story about like a haircut.
Yeah, my haircut. I plan my haircuts around the moon.
I remember you said that.
She was telling me that, and I subscribe to a Vedic astrology newsletter, and so I get every single day I get this newsletter that tells me lots of things like that. So when she told me there was an app out there based upon the moon that also said it, I was like, oh, I've got to have it. So I like that one a lot. And then there's another one called Moon Phase, and this is where you start getting more into if you were, excuse me, I have to take a drink.
I think I have that one too.
I know I have that one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
Yep.
moon phase would be really good. Like, let's say if you were to start wanting to get a little bit more precise with things, and you wanted to start seeing like timing of transits, and you wanted to start seeing, it's just so much more information, like, facts, math, data kind of a thing. So I like that one for when you're starting to get a little bit more serious. My all-time favorite, and then also the program that I personally work in when I'm working in clients' charts, it's called Time Passages.
Can you you can make that whole sign?
Yes. Yep.
Because I was going to say, I'm waiting for you to be done, because Time Passages is what my daughter taught me, because she's like been teaching me a lot about astrology herself.
Yep.
But I didn't know the difference.
I paid. I went it all in. I bought all of their software. Got it on my laptop. Got it on the iPad. Got it on my phone. So I use Time Passages Pro. I keep all my clients' charts. Well, I have it downloaded in two different accounts, so I can back everything up, because I went through an icky Mercury retrograde a couple of years ago. But so I learned my lesson. But that's my favorite. My favorite. Professionally and personally now is this Time Passages Pro. And yeah, there's so many neat things that you can do within that. You can do a lot of like composite and synastry. You can do events. You can do a chart for people so it gives you a lot of options. So very powerful there. That's my go-to.
So yeah, sometimes it just almost gets overwhelming when you're first learning it. That's why I like the pattern, because, and I heard the creator talk about it, and like how she wanted it just to be simplistic for people. And that one is based on your moon sign, which you probably know too.
Immersive. Yep.
I know when I read mine, I was like, yeah. And it totally gave, like, I always feel like astrology, tarot, like all this stuff, it just gives you so much freedom and like comfort to come into your permission. Yes. To be like, yeah, that's who I am. And I'm not going to be, try to like dull that light anymore. Like, this is who I am. I'm going to embrace it. This is just me.
Definitely.
So that's what I love.
Very
about
empowering.
It. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And I love when it's used in that way. Like when you're talking about use it to embody it more, or use it to see how you want to create more harmony in your life, or any of that type of stuff. You also said, it's awareness. And it made me think about, we kind of talked about sun, moon, and rising. Now, I'm just going to guess that some people listening to this are beyond that.
Right.
So, I know when you and I started doing some stuff together, we first started with like Lilith.
Right.
But
we jumped in hard. Yeah.
So what would be some other profound placements, stars, meteors, whatever, that you would be like, if you're now dabbling into something newer, look at ...
So Lilith, I love Lilith. Before I went through my journey of maturity, of learning how to handle my Lilith, she terrified me, and finding where I had Lilith at in my chart, I was scared. I was like, I'm doomed. I am doomed forever. I have Lilith in my 7th house of marriage and relationships, right? So like all of these very intimate one-to-one partnerships, and I'm like, I've got this wild woman running around in there just wreaking havoc. And But so Lilith is a good one because when you really learn what she is asking you to give yourself, it's just such a tag team. You're just a power duo wherever Lilith is in your chart. So Lilith, I think, is a good one because she really heavily approaches your shadow side and almost instantaneously, just within her reputation, gives you transformation as soon as you're aware, So Lilith, I think, is a great one. I really like to work with the north and the south nodes, or your true north node, south node. Just that one is something I kind of have to preface with people what my beliefs are or where I feel like my truth is at this point in life, regarding the afterlife and previous lives, things like that. Because my work with the north nodes and the south nodes really taps into where we came from, before we came here to this body.
Yeah.
And I don't, and then working in the north node, I don't really like to move on towards what potentially could come next. That wouldn't be something I would place there. But my north node really focuses on what we should be working on in this life. And if it feels so untrue to you, good, because you've got work to do there. So I really like working with the north and the south nodes. I think that gives a lot of understanding of why we have these struggles here, and how, a lot of times people will see negative things in their charts and they'll say but I never did that, or I didn't cause that, or how could this maybe kind of heavy characteristic be true of me when I've never done anything to make this be a part of myself. And I think that south node can really come into play there. Give a lot of what energy did you come with, attached in this life? What are those going to be, those kind of qualities that maybe you more easily default back into, that you excel in, but maybe you should step away from, because they can get negative. So north and the south nodes, your Chiron or your Chiron, or I've heard people say it a million different ways and spell it with a K or with a C sometimes too. That one is always... I always I offer one reading. It's called The Juice. And it's...
I've been on your website. I saw that.
Yep. So, and it kind of embodies those three together. So we look at, the past life, south node, kind of what we should be working towards in this life with our north node. We go into Lilith because we got to see where those wild little sneaky blind spots of our personalities are going to just pop out at us. That's how I see Lilith, just because she is in my 7th house and I have to be so present of her, because the first time I kind of start doing something that I'm oh, that was a little bit sassy of you, oh, there goes Lilith kind of popping out again. But your Lilith, because I think she, as soon as just awareness with her really changed my life. And then your Chiron or your Chiron, because that's going to show you that kind of foundational wounding that you probably received in childhood, or prior to the age of 18, and that's going to be what you're working on healing throughout your entire passage in this life.
I have a question about that, because some of the stuff I've been listening to, it's Aries has been in Chiron. Has it been in there forever?
Yeah. I mean,
is it ever not in there? Because that's me. Since it's my sun sign, I'm am I just in what is?
Well, actually, it just we just had a transit where it shifted. I mean, maybe in the last couple of recent years, because right now with Aries, we're all kind of really facing issues of identity and putting ourselves out there, and mastering being assertive and not impulsive with who we are and how we're going forward in life. So that's kind of this, the universal lesson we're all working on right now. But I don't know off the top of my head when we shift yet.
So it's it could be years.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I feel like I've been on a healing journey for years. So this
a lot of them have long. We're talking 4, 7, 9, and then you get some of the other placements, and it's 84 years. Wow. It shifts.
Right. So that's, I think, a great question, because isn't each generation, what's the planet that's almost there's a generational.
Oh yeah, you're Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. Sometimes you're Saturn, but those outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, and
this, because they change after
years.
Yep.
So this is kind of a tangent, but I recently heard about, what is it, Astrology. I'm saying it wrong. Where you like map. It's
Oh,
like
astrocartography.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
I was totally saying it wrong.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was really cool too. Do you do that?
I do. I
Okay.
do.
We should talk about it.
We totally
There's
can.
so much stuff. We need like multiple
I
episodes.
just
I know,
agreed
I
to
know.
a big project yesterday, actually. I finished up a really big personal kind of study I've been working on, and I was like, I'm going to take a little bit of a breather. And then I had a client reach out to me who wants to relocate their entire family. And I was just like, okay, 4 people, 4 relocation charts. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun.
It was cool. When I heard about it and I looked mine up, I was like, I'm actually living in a pretty good place right now, which is
Yes.
where I was born, and I've come back to. It's not right on one of the lines, but
Yeah, in the
I was
close
like,
proximity.
Oh, that's interesting because, and then I thought, well, maybe that's just how it is where everyone's born. It's close to that, but it's not. It looked
Vastly
like,
different. Yep.
because, then I quick did my husband's and my oldest daughter, and they were all in different places. Like my husband had a lot overseas, which he has been for some military
Right.
stuff. So that was interesting. 'Cause I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this line went right through here. And
I was born overseas. I was born, like I said, in Germany. And so when I take my chart, in an overlay over in Europe, I see all of these like beautiful, wonderful placements. And then here in the US, especially right here in Fargo, I've got, kind of some intense ones. And so it's just kind of recognizing what those missions are and where you're at with it. But I've got a Sagittarius 4th house of home and family. So I know eventually I'll get back over to the lines I want to live on.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be a good journey.
interesting. Yeah. This person that I heard just was talking about it. I think it was like, if you're living along your Pluto line, like just be ready for you to lose everything. pretty
Everything
much.
multiple times. Yeah.
But it
over.
can still be good. But I was like, ooh, he's like, don't go there unless you're really ready to
Right.
have everything taken away from you pretty much.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah,
So-
Pluto is such a tricky one. Pluto lines, anything with your Saturn, super, and anything kind of descending, a little bit trickier too. But
That's something else that I've heard people talk about, how your hands can be planets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made me really mindful of like what finger to wear rings on.
yeah.
But I couldn't remember which one is because
So
your
like your
Saturn
Jupiter finger, your Saturn finger.
is the middle finger is the Saturn finger.
Your
Because
middle,
that,
yep.
I think I remember that because they're like, it's like giving
Yeah.
the middle finger to like life or you or whatever.
Right.
So just be mindful if you're wearing like jewelry on that finger, you might be setting yourself
Yep.
up for something.
Yeah, I
thought
I
that
got
was
my
interesting.
hand tattooed a couple years ago, and I spent a lot of time kind of thinking about where I wanted everything at and what I wanted everything to be, just kind of in that representation of pulling all of the energy right here, front and center, on my fingers for everyone
Yeah.
to see. How am I going to do this? So yeah, it's astrology it takes over your whole life after a while.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, yeah, we all have a million questions. So
Yeah. And it provides such insight and stuff. So tell us how people can find you. Tell us what services you offer. Just tell us.
Okay, let's see. How can people find me? I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, just Chamonix Astrology.
And spell that.
Okay,
Let's,
Chamonix, CHAMONIX
all right.
Astrology. I also have, that's also my website, chamonixastrology.com. Yes, that's how you could find me. I'm email, messages. It's running a small business is 24/7 all of the time. So as much as you try and have business hours and days, I always like to be a little bit more accessible because working in astrology, you kind of always have to be there.
Yeah. I mean, transits. What's happening right now?
Immediately. Yep, exactly that. Out to dinner, pulling up someone's chart really quick. I've got to do this, guys. It's just work, 10 minutes. So you can find me there. With COVID, I started doing a lot of things over like Zoom and FaceTime. So there's a couple different ways now that I offer readings. It used to just primarily be email. I did in person a little bit, with people in the area, and I'm always open to that too. But I've kind of started branching into some like recordings and live exchanges, video calls. So that's been fun. And what do I offer? At this point in time, I offer anything anyone will ask me to do.
I love that about you.
Yeah, I had For a little while, I had big opinions about the services I was going to offer because I thought this is what I like to do and this is what I don't like to do. And then the things I didn't like to do, of course, people were asking me to do over and over again. And the universe needed me to work through all of those nuances I had, within those exchanges. But I work a lot in, your one-to-one, your natal reading. So if you come to me for a reading on yourself, I do a lot of, just being a mama and working in childcare, I do a lot of children's charts now. That's such a delicate chart to interpret, but I do work a lot in children's charts, and then also in readings, but energy exchanges between parents and children. So familial synastry is what I'll call it. So I'll be able to look at your relationship with your child and kind of how that can play out. So that's been a fun one for me to get into. I do event charts. Let's see, what else? I do a career-focused reading, a relationship-focused reading. The juice, like I said, where we just explore all of your traumas, all of your traumas and impulses in life. So we just tackle that one head on.
Well, and I feel like that one really ties into so much that we talk about here, because for me, having some of that stuff looked at really woke up areas of my own sensuality and feeling like, okay, I feel good about expressing this in this way. It's in my stars, and that type of stuff.
Right.
So I feel like that one really ties into a lot of everything we talk about.
When people get kind of like a more, I have the basic chart, which isn't basic at all. The other day I finished a reading and it was 17 pages long, and I was like, here's your basic reading.
Well, and I've got to interrupt you and say, yes, like if you work with Chamonix, expect over delivery. As she said, she's a Pisces.
Big time.
So she's like, here, let me work extra hard.
Yeah, big
and
time.
Provide
let me just
you with
dive
pages
into
and
all
pages.
of this. Yep. So the basic chart, after I do the basic, I'll get a lot of people who come back to me and they'll say, like, wow, let's say, 90% of this resonated with me and some other things don't feel quite true yet. And like, you got to believe the distruths as much as you believe the truths. Because a lot of times people don't want to step into their empowerment. They'll say, well, I'm not that, but you have to be. But the other thing that I also hear is like, but there's just something else missing. Or, sometimes I'll hear, I had this thing happen and we didn't really talk about that in there. What do you think that is about? So I'll say, okay, we need to just go one step deeper. So the birth chart in itself, without those kind of extra placements, is such just a wonderful introduction. But when you're really ready for that like healing step of your awareness, that's kind of when you go to that next layer. So that is a really fun reading that I offer, just because there's so much that we go over. We just go so deep, and there's so much connectivity, and there's so much, it's just a deep dive, and then we work ourselves back out. And that's kind of how I feel when I write the reading, I guess. Yeah. So that one is a really good one that I like to do now, when people are ready. And that's kind of my other thing too. And just, when I say like, I like to have an ethical practice, I'm never going to ask someone, or I'm never going to push something on someone that I don't really think they're aware yet or ready for. Like, just because I could maybe push you in my $100 reading. Well, it's got all of it, but maybe you're just ready for the $30 reading. And that's kind of the way to approach astrology, I think, best, to like really get all of it for what it is, understanding it for like the art that it is and the language that it is. It's just breaking it down bit by bit. So if I send you 15 pages, maybe just read one a day.
I love all of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Everyone's going to want to contact you now.
Man.
And get a reading. I know I do.
No, Mercury retrograde station. Well, Mercury station's direct in 2 weeks, so I'll just have to make sure my website's clear of errors.
Well, that's something I was just curious about, like what you have to say about what's going on now, because we're in Libra season.
We're in Libra season
and we're
now.
Mercury retrograde. So is there anything we should be aware of, things we should avoid?
Sure. So, so Mercury retrograde happens twice a year. Typically twice a year. Every now and then you'll catch some goofy year where you'll get it like 3 times or get the tail end of it somewhere else kind of thing. But typically twice a year it happens. So it is a big deal because Mercury is such a fast moving planet that when Mercury is retrograde, we just notice it so much more because it's how we communicate, it's how we exchange, it's how we drive, it's how we text, it's how we look up something online. It's, the comment that your boss says to you, the way you plug in your computer. It's so many just
like human things.
Yes. Just that mundane every day. So we really realized that one. But right now, outside of Mercury, there's 5 other planets that are also stationed retrograde. So we have over the summer kind of just been in this gradual pull back to redo. But this podcast is very auspicious timing because now in the next 2 weeks, actually starting tomorrow with Saturn, everything starts stationing direct again. Actually, Pluto stationed direct last week, so I misspoke. But so we started with Pluto, and then we're going to go into Saturn, and then we'll have Mercury and Jupiter and Uranus. So we've got everything kind of right now. So it's kind of just like imagine everything going on in your life, and it's just kind of slingshotting backwards over the last 6 months. So in the next 2 weeks, everything is going to station direct, and then we're going to go into an eclipse season. So it's like the pullback to launch, and while you're in launch, you're gonna fumble, and hopefully get some really cool tricks out while you're in the air mid spin, diving off the diving board. Yeah, and then we're gonna land right around Christmas time, and Jupiter is gonna station direct out of Aquarius into Pisces, and we're gonna have all of these like phenomenal blessings that really start popping up like January through February of 2022. But so right now, today, and through Christmas, slow down, be present, watch the way that your energy levels affect your communication. Those are going to be big ones. Your impulses within your action and your emotions are going to more directly impact the way that you spend and the way that you budget, and that is going to more directly impact the way that you give and receive energy with other people, because we're really going through this transformation of like self-identity and self-worth right now as well. So a lot of common sense. Retrograde periods are really just kind of like common sense periods. So for myself, this Mercury retrograde, I had something like 19 projects that I was working on. And typically I don't let my project list get over like 10, but I just kept on going with it. I was feeling really good. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, I have a lot of people waiting for readings right now. And then I saw Mercury was about to station retrograde, and I was like, crap. I'm going to miss my deadlines because I always give a deadline, that I like to work towards. It's a longer deadline, but I always like to give a deadline. And I was one of the very first times I was like, I am not going to miss a deadline on these, or I'm going to miss a deadline on these orders, and these people aren't going to get this, and I'm going to have to deal with like whatever their reactions are. And then Mercury stationed retrograde, and I got this whoosh of energy, and it was like 4:30 on October 1st. And that's when I said I was going to have all of these projects out by 5 o'clock on October 1st. And I emailed my last one off. And I was just like, man, this Mercury retrograde made a lot of crazy stuff happen in my schedule in the last 2 weeks, but it gave me so much time to sit down and to work and to write. And I just needed to redo. I needed to redo my mental discipline. I needed to redo my commitment. I needed to redo what my schedule looked like. I needed to redo what my, emotional and mental commitment looked like within the schedule I had made for myself. And I think it's just during retrogrades, we just need to like take a step back, turn on our critical thinking, say, yes, this is what I have been doing. This was a misstep. It's not the end of the world. How can I redo it? How can I get myself in a better position? And then all of the planets station direct, and you go.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's how I felt too. I was like, wow, it's Mercury retrograde. Like, I feel really good. Like, this is awesome. And the last Mercury retrograde, it was not awesome.
Yeah, this one's been like a big second chance. And that's kind of the thing with like Libra season 2, and then we had like the Libra new moon. And it's all just about, it was like a Mercury retrograde while Venus was in Scorpio with all of these Libra themes, and everything was just saying like, get intense and find balance, like reconnect to your passion and reconnect to where you need balance at, and like just get it done. But Libra's so tactful that, you're going to find it. Whatever the balance is, it's going to shift, it's going to assess, it's going to reweigh, remeasure, get you back there. You just have to be open to doing it. So yeah, that's it. Just if people could just be open, aware, critical thinking, we should be fine.
That's cool. I like that there's some blessings coming in 2022 because
Yes.
I also feel like I don't know what was happening, if it was just my life or in the skies, but the other day, just this week, I was going through old emails, and I was like, wow, like where have I been from July till now? I feel like August and September, I'm not quite sure.
Right.
What happened to them? I'm like, did I forget to respond to even email? Like,
Yeah.
it was just a really foggy time for me. And I'm just curious because I feel more embodied again now since we came back in Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'm
So
just
then
curious if that's like a thing.
I have to tell you this too. Well, so Mercury retrograde, I like to now see it as a second chance. So that it's like your second opportunity. So a Mercury retrograde to me now feels like personally, I get the opportunity to go back and redo this, wherever I misstepped. This is that. So it really is that blessing. People could talk about astrology as gloom and doom all day long, and some people do, and some people like that. But after a while, you've got to just, spin it around and kind of put some humor in there and say, okay, well, we can just face our missteps and deal with it like adults or, whatever age you're at kind of thing, maturity. But this other thing, this other, just cosmic phenomena that we've been experiencing has a lot to do with Neptune and Uranus lately. People don't ever really talk about Neptune and Uranus. They're kind of like, they're in the outfield. They don't get into the game too much. And people will say, well, like they're outer generational planets. They don't really cause, too much impact kind of thing. And what I have come to find actually is that is not true at all. The craziest, wildest, most fast-paced things have happened to me on a day where I look at my personal transits and Uranus popped up, and there was this lightning bolt of change in my life that day, whether it be energy or an event, and something just shifted, and there's nothing else going on, and I'm just like, wow, what was that, and Uranus kind of is that lightning bolt, and it just strikes in and creates action. So that's been happening a lot lately. We've had some really dominant transits pop up. And then the other thing with Neptune is that Neptune was really going through some kind of wild transits through the summer. And we're going to dip back into those right around Christmas again. Just one more time, but for a little while. And it just kind of intentionally puts you in a fog so that you almost have to be overwhelmed with your feelings to the point of not being able to associate what your feelings are, so that when the transit is over, you are just so aware of the disconnection you've been living in that you're like, okay, hey, let's start life again. And so so sometimes I hear people will tell me things like that, and they're like, I don't even know where I was, or like, what was, this entire month, or sometimes I'll hear in a relationship chart, they'll be like, where was I at this entire relationship? And I'll say like, oh, well, his sun just completely illuminated your Neptune. So who knows where you were, like, we don't know where you were either. Don't feel bad about it. So
that's interesting. I mean, 100%, that's exactly how I was feeling. That's crazy.
Well, I am glad to help you with the clarity.
So is that just for like the consciousness of people as a whole? That whole Neptune thing was going on. It
was going on, but the thing is, so people will say like, well, if it's going on for the whole collective, then how can it impact me? And that's when you would go to like your daily transits in your natal chart, and you would say like, okay, so what was this big transit doing in my tiny little chart that day? And that's where you can start to see like the big impact that those outer placement planets have. So you won't really, sometimes stuff with Pluto, when a transit starts, or if you hit a midpoint or kind of like a key date, where it's at like a tighter angle, essentially, then you'll start seeing kind of like more quick things happening with Pluto. Saturn is a little bit more of a gradual. Neptune and Uranus, like they're just kind of like those out to field guys, but when they step in, they really step in. So it's
Interesting.
fun to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Well, I love all of it. And
I
I do.
know.
I think we could we'll have to have you back
Yeah,
because
thank you.
I know it would be fun to have you back a few times a year just to kind of update us on like what's going on.
Yeah.
well, and I think it might be fun too.
So
I know
helpful.
we've wanted to go live before and we've decided, okay, no, we're going to stick with recordings, but maybe we could do like almost like a mini live where maybe like 3 people could call in
Oh,
or
that could be
something
so fun.
and just
Yeah.
kind of do a little something, or, maybe we could have people send their information or something and then
Yeah.
just do like a mini something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
current transits or something like
Yeah,
that.
that
I
would
don't
be
know.
blessed. Like I said, there's the eclipses that are coming up in the next
Yeah.
couple of months, so those will be so interesting to see.
And just even briefly, what does that mean? What's going to
An
happen? What
eclipse,
should be aware of?
there's the lunar and solar eclipses, and okay, so in 2020 we had 7 of them,
Yeah,
and it is when the sun and the moon just get in each other's way. Someone just budges in front of the other one, and they block each other out. And that is that's the best way I can describe that. No math on the table, and so when it does happen, it is like this divine act of God, that absolutely had to happen. Someone had to overpower the other one to create this instance because this is what you needed right now. And this year we only have 4. So that is like such a relief from last year because 2020 was insane. But this year we had 2 of them, May and June. They're 2 weeks apart. And then we'll have 2 more end of November, beginning of December. I believe the 18th and the 6th, November 18th and December 6th. And they're in Sagittarius and Taurus. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of see what, when the moon budges in front of the sun and then the sun budges back in front of the moon, what that 2-week toss up. Well, it's kind of like, it's, some people will say it's like going into a portal or you're going into a wormhole or whatever analogy you want to use. But when the eclipse starts, you step in and you come out 2 weeks later on the other side. And sometimes it's crazy, sometimes it's not. You got to look at your current transits to see. But I noticed like in May, nothing too wild was happening for me, but everyone around me was having the craziest stuff in the world go on. And I could kind of see how it was impacting and mirroring in my own life, but I wasn't feeling it so deeply just because of where it was happening in my chart. But it's, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard people say that's like when big things can happen, like maybe you get married or divorced or you get pregnant or like just major life-changing things can happen.
You get in a car accident or you get a new job or, really anything kind of like that. And it's
life-altering.
big time. Yep.
And oh, okay. Exciting.
Yes.
Woo!
I know. So there's a little bit of tenseness now that everybody is thinking about that.
Well, take a deep breath, everyone.
Yeah.
Let it
Be a
go
positive.
shake.
It'll be over before you have to start. Oh no, well, let's see. It'll happen right around the time everybody starts seeing their family for the holidays. So good luck.
I love it. Well, everyone check out Chamonix, Instagram, Facebook. What else did you say? Your website. At chamonixastrology.com. And we hope you enjoy the ride. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for musing about with Crystal and Katie. You can find all kinds of amazing classes and resources with Crystal at aliveness.academy, or you can find her with crystalpleasurefairy.com. And Katie, you can find at wellnesswithkatie.com. That's Katie. Wellnesswithkatie.com. Enjoy your day and have fun musing about and living fully alive.